Picture being 19 and learning of the ultimate secrets of the universe, the rules of mathematics governing stellar death. Then turning to your greatest advocate, the one person in the world whose opinion is all that matters, you find yourself publicly ridiculed by him on the biggest scientific stage in the world, squelching both your career and your discovery for the next 50 years. This may simply seem like a story about two scientists disagreeing. However, it is much more. It is a sad, shameful, and ultimately unjust story of an extraordinary betrayal, an incredible patience, and a wait for half a century for justice. A miracle at sea. The date is 1930 and an ocean liner is crossing the seemingly limitless expanse of the Indian Ocean on its way to England. Aboard this particular ocean liner, there is a young man named Subrahmanyan Chandrasekhar, Chandra, who is 19 years old. For many of the other passengers on deck, they are admiring the beauty around them. However, for Chandra, with a pencil in one hand and a sheaf of papers in the other, he is derisively known as the mathematics genius, as he solves his series of equations using his young intellect. Little did anyone know that aboard that same ship, with every stroke of Chandra's pencil, he was discovering a truth that would forever change the course of modern astrophysics. Chandrasekhar combined two complicated theories: quantum mechanics and special relativity. Up until Chandra did his calculations, it was commonly believed that stars just faded into stable cinders, which were called white dwarfs, after they used up the fuel. Chandra showed us that there was another possibility. If the mass of a star was large enough, the force of gravity would overwhelm anything else. Therefore, rather than fading away, the star would continue to collapse until it was a point of infinite density. This point of infinite density is now called a black hole. However, in 1930, many scientists thought that it was an impossible or ridiculous hypothesis. Cambridge and idle. On the 9th of October 1930, Chandra also arrived at Cambridge University. Upon arrival at Cambridge, Chandrasekhar was very excited because of all of his calculations. He had the opportunity to meet with Sir Arthur Eddington, the most well-known astrophysicist in the world at the time. Eddington had discovered Einstein and had demonstrated that general relativity was true during a solar eclipse. Therefore, to Chandra, Eddington represented something special, his idol or mentor. Eddington was supportive of Chandra at first. He provided a cushion for Chandra, giving him encouragement to work on his work and assisting him with his navigation of the academic world. Chandra thought that he had the support of his childhood hero, but in reality, there was an undercurrent between the two of them. Unbeknownst to Chandra, Eddington had his reservations about a young Indian graduate from a British university could eventually reverse all of the theories he had been developing for decades. London, January 11, 1935. Somebody has invited Chandra to speak at the Royal Astronomical Society, and the audience that he had the opportunity to speak to was absolutely packed. Chandra stood at the podium. He spoke nervously yet clearly and stated the facts behind the Chandrasekhar limit, which is if a star has greater than 1.4 solar masses, that star will have the tendency to continue to collapse for all of time. As soon as Chandra finished running the numbers, it was completely silent in the room. After Chandra finished, Eddington stood up in front of the entire audience. He was not there to congratulate Chandra, he was there to condemn Chandra. Eddington not only disagreed with Chandra's results, he insulted Chandra and belittled his work by saying there was a natural law that must exist to prevent a star from having the capacity to perform in this kind of extravagant manner. He continued to ridicule Chandra's mathematics by saying that it was a lawful marriage of two theories that are incompatible with one another. Older, wiser scientists trusted Eddington enough to laugh at him. Chandra, who was only 24 years old, felt crushed and his career had been killed before it had started. In the next chapter of his life, Chapter 4, 50 Years of Silent Exile, Chandra had gone to the United States, to Chicago. He knew that England didn't have a place for him. He left England to get away from Eddington's enormous shadow and the damage Eddington had done to Chandra's reputation and career. What hurt Chandra the most was that he had proven to himself he was correct and no one would support him, even though he had proven them wrong. Eddington was so powerful that most scientific peers in the private sector agreed that Chandra had reason to believe he was correct. However, they were too fearful to support him publicly. So what did Chandra do? Did he quit? No, Chandra showed extraordinary dignity by never again talking about black holes. Instead, he dedicated all of his time and energy to other scientific fields: radiation, stellar structure, and fluid dynamics. Although he had carried the silent truth of his mathematical certainty in his heart for 5 decades, he continued to demonstrate his genius. Redemption from the universe. Time continued. Technology advanced, and by the 1970s, satellites sent into outer space confirmed exactly what Chandrasekhar had predicted at 19 years. Cygnus Xi was the first confirmed black hole. The scientific world, in disbelief, found that all of Chandrasekhar's mathematics were still perfectly accurate from 1930 to the last decimal. The scientific world had only spent the last 50 years trying to catch up to a 19-year-old boy. Then, in 1983, 53 years after the fateful boat ride, he received a phone call from the Nobel Committee. At the age of 73, Subrahmanyan Chandrasekhar had finally won the Nobel Prize in Physics. However, he felt his win was a heavy victory. In his acceptance speech, Chandrasekhar told the world of scientists that he was disappointed that he was being recognized for his earliest work only. He had completed so much, however, and the world was still enamored with the genius that they tried to destroy 50 years earlier. Chandra's legacy today, one of NASA's most powerful telescopes in outer space, is named Chandra X-ray Observatory. Sir Arthur Eddington is known by history, while Chandrasekhar lives on among the stars. Chandra's example demonstrates that truth is unaffected by one's ego or the awards categories you have received or your title. Even the greatest stars must eventually die, however, the truth remains eternal. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as moving as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Unlucky Geniuses for more incredible tales of the minds that history tried to forget. See you in the next one.